I never thought I'd be the kind of guy who would end up pouring his life out on the internet. But lately I've realized I don't really have anyone left to talk to. My name doesn't matter. I'm 35. I've been married for 8 years. Together with my wife for almost 11. We met when we were broke, tired, and dreaming about things we couldn't afford yet. Back then, she used to tell me I was her safe place, that I made her feel protected, that she trusted me more than anyone. I built my entire adult life around that idea. I worked overtime, turned down trips, missed birthdays, missed nights out with friends, all so we could have a house, savings, stability. And for a long time, I thought it was worth it. We weren't flashy. We weren't posting couple goals on social media. But we were solid. Or at least, that's what I told myself. About a year ago, things started to feel off. Not dramatic. Not obvious. Just wrong in a quiet way. She stopped waiting for me to come home. Stopped leaving notes in my lunchbox. Stopped asking if I got home safe. When I tried to talk about it, she'd smile and say I was overthinking. That life just gets busy. That nothing was wrong. I believed her. Because believing her was easier than imagining the alternative. Then she started changing in ways that didn't make sense. New clothes, new perfume, a gym membership she suddenly cared about, long showers where she'd bring her phone with her, late nights catching up with coworkers. I remember once asking her, half joking, "Do you have a secret boyfriend I should know about?" She laughed too loudly and said, "You're ridiculous." But her eyes didn't match her smile. I noticed that. I started noticing everything after that. The way she angled her phone away from me. The way she flinched when I walked into a room unexpectedly. The way she stopped saying, "I love you" first. I didn't want to become paranoid. I didn't want to turn into some insecure husband who checks phones and tracks locations. So I stayed quiet. I convinced myself that trust meant ignoring doubt. Looking back, that was the first mistake. The night everything began to unravel was supposed to be ordinary. It was a Tuesday. Nothing special. We had leftover pasta. Watched half an episode of some show we weren't really paying attention to. She said she was tired and went to bed early. I stayed up answering emails. Around midnight, her phone started vibrating on the coffee table. Over and over. She'd forgotten it downstairs. That almost never happened. I tried to ignore it. I really did. But after the 5th notification in 2 minutes, my chest started tightening. I glanced at the screen. No name. Just a contact saved as R. One message preview popped up. I can't stop thinking about last night. My hands started shaking. I told myself there was a logical explanation. A coworker. A joke. Something harmless. I picked up the phone, intending to just hand it to her upstairs. But another message came through before I moved. "I wish you were here instead of him." That's when I knew. I stood there in my living room, in my socks, in my quiet house, feeling like someone had ripped the floor out from under me. I didn't go upstairs right away. I sat on the couch with her phone in my hands, staring at the screen like it might explode. Part of me still hoped I was wrong, that I misunderstood, that it was some weird misunderstanding. I unlocked it without thinking. Same password she'd used for years. Our anniversary date. The irony almost made me laugh. The messages were worse than I imagined. Months of conversations. Hotel plans. Complaints about me. Jokes about how clueless I was. Voice notes where she whispered that she loved him. Pictures she had never sent to me. Not once. My heart felt like it was being crushed slowly, deliberately. I scrolled until my vision blurred. Until my stomach hurt. Until I couldn't breathe properly. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a slip. This was a whole second life. When I finally went upstairs, she was pretending to sleep. I stood at the edge of the bed for a long time, just looking at her. At the person I trusted with everything. At the person who knew my fears, my insecurities, my childhood stories. I whispered her name. She opened her eyes and immediately saw the phone in my hand. Her face changed. Not to guilt, to panic. "Why do you have that?" she asked. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't yell. I just said, "Who is R?" She sat fast, grabbing the blanket around her, Why are you going to my phone? That was her first response. Not denial, not apology, anger, accusation. Like I was the one who had crossed a line. I asked again, "Who is he?" She looked away and said, "It's not what you think." And somehow, that hurt more than if she had just admitted everything right then. After that morning, nothing in our house felt normal anymore. Every room seemed smaller, colder, unfamiliar. We moved around each other like strangers who had accidentally rented the same place. She tried to act like everything could go back to normal if we just worked on it. She made breakfast, left sweet notes, texted me during the day. But every smile felt forced. Every "I love you" sounded rehearsed. Meanwhile, my mind was in constant chaos. I kept replaying everything. Every late night. Every ignored message. Every time she chose her phone over me. I started questioning my entire marriage. Wondering how long I had been blind. Wondering if I had ever really known her. At work, I couldn't focus. I'd stare at my computer and see her dating profile instead of spreadsheets. At night, I lay awake listening to her breathe, thinking about how close we were physically and how distant we were emotionally. She promised she deleted the app. Show me her phone. No Tinder. No Bumble. No Hinge. Nothing. She said she was ashamed, that she hated herself for hurting me, that she would never do it again. I wanted to believe her so badly that I convinced myself the worst was over. We started counseling. Again, she cried in front of the therapist, talked about feeling empty, about losing herself, about needing attention. The therapist asked me how I felt. I said I felt betrayed and confused. My wife squeezed my hand like she was supporting me. It felt surreal. After sessions, she'd tell me how proud she was of us, how strong we were for trying. I nodded. Inside, I felt hollow. 2 months later, the second discovery happened, and it was worse than the first. I borrowed her laptop to order something online. Her email was already open. I wasn't snooping. I wasn't searching. A message popped up by itself. "Last night was amazing. I still smell your perfume on my sheets." My chest tightened. I clicked it. Dozens of emails, hotel reservations, photos, voice notes, plans, real plans, not just fantasies. She had been meeting multiple men. Not one, 3, at least 3, over almost a year, while going to therapy with me, while holding my hand, while promising honesty. I felt physically sick. I locked myself in the bathroom and threw up. Then I sat on the floor, shaking like I was freezing. When I confronted her this time, she didn't bother pretending. She got angry, said I violated her privacy, said I was obsessed, said she was tired of being monitored. She told me she never meant to hurt me, but she also never meant to stop. That sentence destroyed me. I never meant to stop. She said monogamy wasn't natural for her, that she felt trapped in marriage, that she loved me in her own way, that I was stable but not exciting, safe but not thrilling, a good husband, just not enough. I felt like someone had reduced my entire existence to a boring resume. Years of loyalty, reduced to not enough. After that, I fell into a dark place. I stopped going to the gym, stopped answering friends' calls, lost weight without trying. Some days I wouldn't eat until evening. I started blaming myself. Maybe I was boring. Maybe I stopped trying. Maybe I let myself go. Maybe I deserved it. She noticed I was breaking and somehow made it about her. She said my sadness made her feel guilty, that my energy was depressing, that I was pushing her away. One night she told me, "If you keep acting like this, I'll just leave." And I realized how twisted everything had become. I was being punished for being hurt. At some point, I stopped arguing, not because things were okay, but because I didn't have the strength anymore. Every conversation followed the same pattern. I'd ask for honesty. She'd promise change. I'd ask for details. She'd accuse me of living in the past. I'd cry. She'd get annoyed. It was emotional quicksand. The more I tried to move forward, the deeper I sank. I started spending more time alone, taking long drives after work, sitting in parking lots listening to music. Sometimes I'd just stare at nothing for an hour, trying to remember who I was before my life revolved around her moods and lies. I realized I hadn't felt relaxed in my own home for months, maybe years. One evening, I ran into an old friend from college at a grocery store. We hadn't spoken in years. We grabbed coffee and talked for hours. He asked how my marriage was. I hesitated, then told him the truth, everything. He listened quietly and then said something simple. Man, that's not love. That's emotional abuse. Hearing out loud felt like getting punched and hugged at the same time. Abuse. I had never used that word. I always thought abuse had to be physical. Bruises, screaming, violence, not manipulation, not gaslighting, not constant betrayal. That conversation changed how I saw everything. A week later, I made a mistake. Or at least, that's what I thought at first. I checked her location. We shared it for safety. She told me it made her feel closer to me. That night, she said she was working late. Her location showed her at a hotel across town. I drove there without thinking, parked across the street, sat in my car for 20 minutes, shaking. I didn't want to go in. I didn't want proof. I didn't want my world to collapse again. But I went. I walked into the lobby and saw her sitting with a man I had never seen before, laughing, touching his arm, leaning in close. She looked happy, happier than I had seen her in years. When she saw me, her face went white. The man looked confused. I didn't say a word. I just turned around and walked out. I cried in my car like a child. When I got home, she was already there. Somehow, waiting. She said she could explain. That he was just a client. That it was business. That I embarrassed her. That I was stalking her. I showed her the location. She screamed, threw a pillow, said I invaded her privacy. Then she admitted it. Yes, they slept together. Yes, it happened more than once. No, she wasn't planning to tell me. She said, I didn't want to hurt you. That sentence felt like poison. Everything she did hurt me. Constantly. Deliberately. She just didn't want to deal with the consequences. That night, something inside me finally shifted. I didn't beg. I didn't argue. I didn't try to convince her to stay. I packed a bag. Slowly. Methodically. Like I was moving underwater. She followed me around the house crying, apologizing, promising everything again. I felt nothing. No anger. No love. Just exhaustion. I left and drove to a cheap motel. Slept fully clothed. Stared at the ceiling until sunrise. For the first time in a long time, I felt strangely calm. Waking up in that motel room felt surreal. The curtains were thin, letting in weak morning light. The air smelled like old carpet and cheap detergent. My phone was full of missed calls and messages from her. Apologies. Accusations. Please come home. You're overreacting. We can fix this. You're ruining everything. Reading them all back to back made something clear to me. She wasn't sorry for what she did. She was sorry she lost control of the situation. I didn't reply. I showered, got dressed, and went straight to work like nothing had happened. My coworkers had no idea my marriage had collapsed overnight. That normalcy helped more than I expected. It reminded me that my entire identity didn't have to revolve around her. Over the next few weeks, I stayed with my brother. He didn't ask many questions. Just let me exist. Let me be quiet. Let me fall apart slowly. I started therapy again, this time seriously. Not as a couple. Just me. I talked about how small I felt. How irreplaceable. How stupid. My therapist helped me see patterns I had ignored. How often I excused disrespect. How I confused loyalty with self-sacrifice. How I believed that loving someone meant tolerating anything. Slowly, painfully, I began rebuilding my sense of self. She tried everything to pull me back. Showed up unannounced. Left handwritten letters. Sent long emotional emails. Promised transparency. Promised change. Promised to cut off everyone. At one point, she even offered to let me monitor her phone permanently, like a parole agreement. That alone told me how broken things were. A marriage shouldn't feel like a prison. I told her I needed space. She called me cruel, heartless, said I was abandoning her when she needed me most. I almost believed her. Then I remembered how alone I had felt for years while she was chasing attention elsewhere. The real turning point came when I met with a lawyer. Just for information, I told myself, sitting in that office, hearing someone calmly explain my options, made everything real: separation, assets, timelines, rights, responsibilities. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't dramatic. It was practical. And that's what I needed. Reality instead of emotional chaos. A week later, I told her I wanted a separation. Not a break. Not time apart. A real separation. She collapsed onto the couch and sobbed. Begged me. Promised she'd change, this time for real. I looked at her and realized I had heard that sentence too many times. I told her gently that I didn't trust her anymore. And without trust, there was nothing left. Signing the papers was harder than I expected. My hands shook. My throat felt tight. 11 years reduced the documents and signatures. She tried to delay it. Forgot appointments. Claimed she wasn't emotionally ready. Said we were moving too fast. I stayed firm. Every step forward felt like tearing off an old wound, but it also felt like healing underneath. I moved into a small apartment. Bought cheap furniture. Started over, piece by piece. Life felt fragile, but it was mine again. After moving into my own place, I expected loneliness to crush me. Everyone warned me about it. Friends said the silence would be unbearable, that the empty rooms would remind me of everything I lost. But the opposite happened. The quiet felt clean, honest. No more wondering who she was texting. No more waiting for her excuses. No more emotional landmines. I started creating small routines just for myself. Morning walks, cooking simple meals, listening to podcasts while cleaning. It sounds boring, but for the first time in years, my life felt stable. Some nights were still hard. I'd catch myself reaching for my phone to text her something random, then remember there was no us anymore. Those moments hurt, but they passed faster each time. About 5 months after the separation, she reached out again. A long message filled with regret. She said she finally understood how much damage she caused. That therapy helped her see her patterns. That she was different now. That she missed me every day. She asked if we could meet just to talk. I stared at that message for an hour. Part of me wanted closure. Part of me wanted proof that I still mattered. Part of me wanted to run. In the end, I replied politely and declined. I wished her well, and I meant it, not because she deserved another chance, but because I deserved peace. Blocking her afterward felt like closing the last open wound. Today, almost a year later, I'm in a completely different place. I'm not bitter. I'm not obsessed with the past. I'm cautious, yes. More aware, more selective. I've gone on dates. Met kind, honest people. Learned that attraction doesn't have to come with anxiety. That love doesn't have to feel like walking on broken glass. I've learned to speak up when something feels wrong, to set boundaries without apologizing, to walk away without guilt. Most importantly, I've learned that being alone is infinitely better than being lonely with someone who doesn't respect you. If you're reading this and you're stuck in a relationship where lies are normal and apologies are temporary, please listen to me. Don't wait for rock bottom. Don't wait for one more betrayal. Patterns don't change without real consequences. You cannot love someone into being honest. You cannot sacrifice yourself into being valued. Leaving doesn't mean you failed. Sometimes, leaving means you finally chose yourself. I thought losing my marriage would destroy me. Instead, it saved me.